Hello everyone, TP here, and I'm officially going to start ranking each episode from Thomas the Tank Engine. And what I mean is, yes, I took that from Den and Dart, every episode from this franchise will be covered. So for the sake of consistency, I'm not going to cover Tug since it's meant to be going for a completely different audience and it's a completely different show that takes place in a different universe, I assume. I know it's made by the same people, but I think it's meant to be a different show overall. But I might do a ranking list of the 13 episodes one day. So for now, we'll be covering seasons 1 to 24, and yes, the long episodes from Wubba are included. Jack and the Pack, the spin off series, and all the Thomas movies in the docket. Yes, I'm including Wubba as well. And just to clarify, this is a ranking series inspired by my friends' ranking videos. If you want to go check those out, I'll put a link to those videos in the description. But the only differences are my opinions are different, and I want to do this in my own originality. I have the right to do a ranking list, people. So with that out of the way, let's begin the ranking list for Season 1. Whistles and Sneezes. I'm sorry, but this episode is just very mediocre. It's not bad, it's just mediocre. Gordon's whistle is annoying and could give me a headache. The two plots don't connect, mostly anyway. I mean, I guess the only connection I can see is like the boys and Gordon both getting their karma, but that's it. And honestly, I think the second half was much better and should have been the primary adaptation instead of adapting both Gordon's Whistle and Henry's Sneeze from the Railway series, I think they were called. Um, but yeah, I really don't like this episode. 4 out of 10. Thomas and the Guard. This is a very boring story, but the music is good at least, and the scenes with the Guard are funny, I guess. But other than the good stuff which I just mentioned, this episode is very nothing and very lazy too. I guess I can see why people would mark this as their least favorite episode. 4 out of 10. Thomas's train. Thomas should feel the weight of the coaches and not thin air. Like, how does he not feel the weight of the coaches, even though they're not coupled up to him? And not to mention, like, he's clearly deaf since he's still close to the station. Like, if the people didn't notice and would just look back and saw Thomas, like, leaving when he gets to, like, the signal box, or the signals, as a matter of fact, then that would have been so much better. And not to mention the fact that they just don't give us a reason as to why Thomas left the coaches behind. Like, I think they handled this way better in The Adventure Begins. And again, in that movie, I will never understand why Thomas didn't feel the weight of the coaches, but at least they gave us a reason as to why Thomas left the coaches behind. 5 out of 10. James and the coaches. I'm sorry, but this episode has just a very clunky premise, and it's a very bland story. Like, James has trouble with coaches, and that's it. Like, and he also gets into trouble with Topham for ruining his new top hat. And that's it. That's all that happens in the episode. I really don't like this one. I mean, I don't think it's bad by any means. In fact, none of the episodes from Season 1 are bad by any means. But I just don't like some of these episodes, including this one. 5 out of 10. Thomas goes fishing. It does start a history with Thomas's hatred of fish, which I like, but it's just very boring, honestly. And like, why did the crew think it a good idea to get water from the river? I mean, at least it creates the iconic line, like, Inspector, can you see fish? And then the immediate cut to Thomas being, like, surprised is just iconic. But other than that, I think this episode is just the better one of the not so good episodes from Season 1. 5 out of 10. Percy runs away. Alright, we're finally at the first good episode on the list. Yeah, so the runaway was good, and the music overall was also good. But the only problem I can find is that Gordon's line, "Well done, Percy. You started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident." That line just made no sense to me. Like Gordon stopped before hitting Percy. He just narrowly came to a stop. So how did Percy stop the accident? Like, did he manage to go onto a siding, avoiding to collide with another engine? I have no idea. But still, this episode is really good, and has great character dynamics. It has good music, and the runaway itself, as mentioned, was good. 7 out of 10. Edward and Gordon. This episode had a really good premise, and I've been rooting for Edward the entire time throughout this episode. Like when he gets to go on his day out, and when he pushes Gordon up the hill. I do find it a bit weird how Edward's day out was a bit rushed, but honestly, I can just see why. Like, they're trying to, like, make 2 adaptations, like one of Edward's day out and one with Edward and Gordon, and they're trying to combine it into a 4.5-minute episode, which I felt was weird, but honestly kind of suitable as to, like, not make, like too many adaptations that, like, didn't feel necessary for, like, part 2, part 1s, or just felt too short. But overall, this episode was still good. 7 out of 10. The Sad Story of Henry. This is definitely the most real and dark episode of Season 1. Henry getting bricked up in a tunnel was very dark and just very sad. But honestly, he just deserved it, as he was the one being selfish for not wanting to get out. Speaking of wanting to get out, like, I find it a bit ridiculous how the Fat Controller just asks the passengers to push and pull the train. Like, I really don't get how the passengers are. What I'm trying to say is, I don't get how Topham thinks all the passengers can pull a giant engine based on a Black 5 tender engine, and how it can also pull its 3 coaches. Like, what? But overall, this episode is definitely a dark one, to say the least, and it was honestly still good, but that ridiculousness that I just discussed was a bit weird. But still, this episode is still good. 7 out of 10. Edward, Gordon, and Henry. This episode is honestly much more interesting in my opinion, as it explains how Henry got out of the tunnel. And seriously, I hate those articles where they just say Henry was shut up in the tunnel forever and he died in there. But even though this episode tells us that this is clearly false information, or actually the better word to describe it, propaganda. I think that's the correct term. I don't know. But yeah, this is definitely another one of the good episodes, and much more interesting, in my eyes as well. 7 out of 10. Cole. This is basically the saddest episode of Season 1, and Henry's problem with, having to deal with, like, normal coal and changing over to Welsh coal is very relatable. And it was also very nice to see Henry working well again after getting the new Welsh coal. Other than that, I don't have much to say about it, other than the next episode after it is a definite improvement. 7 out of 10. Thomas and Gordon. This episode has funny music, funny premise, and honestly, the turntable scene was a bit awkward to me, but it was one thing when they added, like, they gave the turntable its own theme, like, which I thought was weird to call it the turntable theme, but it was the only thing I guess it was called the turntable theme because Thomas went on a turntable, and so did, and a couple of other engines went on turntables, and we hear that same theme, like, in this episode, and the next one that is much further on the list, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, Thomas and Gordon, a really good start to the series. 7 out of 10. Down the Mine. It's very nice to see Thomas and Gordon's rivalry end on such a good note. And this episode has good crash. A good crash. I am sorry if I just made my literary terms so bad. But yeah, anyway. This episode has a good crash and good music. But honestly, I feel the crash was a bit out of nowhere, but it was still good. But I think the pilot version was much better in my opinion because, well, I honestly think, yeah, it does just make, like, the camera does make it look like the pilot was very toy-like. But hey, it was just a pilot, so I can at least give it a pass for that. 7 out of 10 for the original, full release of the episode. Thomas and the Breakdown Train. This episode definitely has a good premise and good music, and Thomas getting his branch line at the end of the episode was well deserved. Since he saw a runaway train, and once he heard it was off the rails, he went to get the breakdown train, like the piece of rolling stock he saw earlier, immediately, and rushed over to the crash site to clean up the mess. But honestly, I thought it was a bit boring, and I wish it had a little more action. But other than that, this episode is still really good. 8 out of 10. Trouble in the Shed. This episode was really good, and Percy is a great character, and his theme is also fantastic. My second favorite theme in the entire show. But yeah, but like Cole, I don't have much to say about it. An 8 out of 10 for me. Thomas and Bertie. This episode has the iconic race, and it is great. Bertie's theme is also great, and the Thomas and Bertie dynamic is at its best here, in my opinion. Even though it was at the very start of the show, like, I really like how Thomas and Thomas and Bertie interacted in this episode, and like, my favorite scene from this episode was when, like after Thomas leaves Dryaw, and then he just sees Bertie on the bridge up ahead in the lead somehow. That scene was just really funny to me. But other than that, I don't have much to say about it. We all know how good this episode is. 8 out of 10. Thomas's Christmas Party. This episode has the great snow setting along with another episode, which we'll get to in a bit. It has a great premise, but I feel the flashback scene at the beginning was a bit out of place, considering we never got the part 1, and that part 1 was Mrs. Kindly's Christmas from the Railway series book, Toby the Tram Engine, I believe it was called. And it was the last story of that book, but for some reason it wasn't adapted. Well, that just makes the flashback feel very out of place. Well, I take back what I said. It's not a bit out of place, it's very out of place. But yeah, this episode was still a very sweet end to the season, even though I wish Pain Pots and Queens was adapted instead of this one. 9 out of 10. Tenders and Turntables. This episode is the funniest of Season 1 in my opinion. It has funny moments throughout the episode, like when Gordon takes the express going backwards, the children making fun of him. Same with Thomas with his advice about telling Gordon to scrap his tender and get a coal bunker, just like him. And James spinning around on the turntable was just very eye candy. Oh my god, this episode was so funny when I rewatched it. It also had good music and a very interesting premise. 9 out of 10. Thomas, Terrence, and the Snow. It's great to see the snow setting again, and Terrence is an interesting character, to say the least. Like, he's not bad or anything, but sometimes he can be a bit creepy. And this episode has a good premise, too. 9 out of 10. Toby and the Stout Gentleman. This episode is the most relaxing of Season 1, in my opinion. And it's a very sad end to Toby's line being closed down. and you really do feel that he gets you really do hope that he gets saved by the end of the episode. Like that, like it's so sad to see Toby's line go to despair. And this episode had really good music too. Even Toby's theme was really good. But yeah, other than that, I don't have much else to say. 9 out of 10. Thomas in trouble. Oh my god. The policeman, like, let me just say this right up front. The policeman is extremely hilarious, and Thomas is at his best here in my opinion. Like, the interaction between Thomas and the policeman is my favorite part of the episode. I don't know if it's my favorite moment of the entire season, but it very well might be one of my favorite moments of the entire season. And this episode has just great character dynamics overall, and honestly, I know this is a part 2 to a part 1 that was very relaxing, which we just discussed earlier in the previous ranking, but this is honestly, like, to quote a meme, I like Toby and Stout Gentleman, but I like Thomas in Trouble a lot better. So yeah, Thomas in Trouble, another really great episode. 9 out of 10. The Flying Kipper. This episode has the best visuals of the season. It has a great crash that is done very seriously, and is also taken very seriously, might I add. And it was very nice to have the ending where Henry gets his new shape and new firebox. And he didn't have to use special Welsh coal anymore, even though the hit era later on just treated it like Henry needed special coal all the frickin' time, which is not true. But I really like this episode. It's such an eye candy to see the visuals. 10 out of 10. Great episode. But I think there are episodes that are honestly more interesting than this one. James and the Express. James getting to pull the Express was so nice, and I'm surprised that Gordon even shunts in the yard and he's actually cool with it. And honestly, the funniest part of the episode, Gordon trying to sneak into the station without being noticed, is hilarious. And this episode has great music, along with James's killer theme. And overall, this is just a fun and interesting episode to watch. 10 out of 10. Troublesome Trucks. What can I say? I think my friend Duncan Gaming, aka Louie, said it best. James is pretty much a badass throughout the episode. And there's just great music overall. Like, I think my friend just put it into words better than I do. 10 out of 10. Another great James episode. Off the Rails. This is honestly, to me, the most nostalgic episode of Season 1. Probably the entire show, as a matter of fact. As it has a very iconic crash, and it has great dialogue that just sticks in my brain for as long as I live. Like right away, I can easily, this is the episode that made me remember that made me remember almost every line of dialogue from. When I watched this when I was younger, I could remember every single word from this episode. Like, you think I'm joking? What's a good example? Aren't jams and aren't jam safety valves? I sometimes I just forget the quotes. Okay, maybe I don't remember this episode as much. But yeah, this is a very iconic episode to me. 10 out of 10. Thomas and the Trucks. This episode just has a great runaway sequence, and it has great music. I don't have much else to say about it. 10 out of 10. Fantastic episode. But there's one episode that tops this one, and that is Dirty Objects. What can I say? It's the most entertaining episode of Season 1. It has a great crash. The best crash of Season 1 in my opinion. It has great camera shots, iconic dialogue, and everything about this episode is just great. Like, what can I say? You all know, some of you may know me for liking this episode the most out of any other Season 1 episode. 10 out of 10. this episode deserves the #1 spot in my opinion. And that is my ranking of Season 1. Now, I know some people are going to disagree with me, but that's fine. Everyone is entitled to their opinions, and one thing I do ask is do not bash my opinion on an episode that you think I trashed or cherished. And in fact, I want to acknowledge, I actually sat down and watched the entire season before making this video, and that'll probably not apply to the other seasons that follow. Oh, good lord. Wait until I get into the Miller era. But I thank you for watching this video, and I'm hoping to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.